They thought they could get away with it. They believed that their actions would go unnoticed, that they could deceive, manipulate, and betray without facing the consequences. But the truth has a way of surfacing, and when it does, there is a price to pay. A price that no matter how hard they try to run, they will never escape. Their betrayal will cost them, and the cost will be steep. I've seen it before. People think they can play the game, twist the rules, and think they can walk away clean. They believe they can play others for fools, taking advantage of trust, loyalty, and relationships that others hold dear. But let me tell you something, when you betray the very foundation of trust that others place in you, the world is not going to let you off easy. For far too long, the ones who have betrayed have sat at the top, believing that their lies and deceit would keep them there. They believe their position, their power, their status would shield them from the truth. They think that they can manipulate the system, twist the narrative, and maintain control. But that's where they're wrong. I know what it feels like to be taken advantage of. I know what it feels like to have someone you trust, someone you've given everything to, turn their back on you for their own gain. It's a pain that cuts deep and the scars remain. The feeling of being deceived, betrayed, and manipulated is something that stays with you. But it's not just the immediate pain that hurts, it's the long-term effects. Because betrayal doesn't just break hearts or damage relationships, it tears apart the very fabric of what makes us human, our ability to trust. Those who betray others think they're playing a game. They think they can manipulate the situation to their advantage and come out on top. But what they don't realize is that they're playing a dangerous game. A game that no matter how much they think they can control it, will eventually catch up to them. The house of cards they've built will come crashing down, and the consequences will be far greater than they ever imagined. When you betray someone, you're not just hurting them in the moment, you're setting the stage for your own downfall. Because the world doesn't forget. People don't forget. The people you've wronged will remember. And they will rise up. They will fight for what's right, and they will make sure you pay for your actions. Betrayal doesn't just affect the person who's been betrayed, it affects everything around them. It shakes their belief in humanity. It makes them question everything they've ever known. It creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond the immediate circle of trust. Friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers can feel the impact. The lies spread like wildfire, and the damage is irreversible. And when the truth comes to light, when the lies are exposed and the masks come off, it's a reckoning. A reckoning that no amount of money, power, or influence can escape. You can't buy your way out of betrayal. You can't talk your way out of it. You can't hide behind your status, your title, or your reputation. The truth will find a way to expose you, and when it does, there's no running from it. I've seen people try to cover up their tracks, try to lie their way out of the mess they've created, but in the end, it's always the same. The truth always comes out. And when it does, the fallout is devastating. You lose everything. The trust of those who once believed in you, the respect of those who once admired you, and the very integrity that you once thought you had are all gone. What's left is the emptiness of knowing that you sold your soul for a moment of selfish gain. You may think you're untouchable. You may think that your position in life, your connections, your wealth, or your influence can shield you from the consequences of your actions. But let me tell you something, it won't. It can't. No matter how much you try to hide, no matter how deep you bury the truth, it will always find a way to resurface. And when it does, it will cost you everything. Some people don't understand the gravity of betrayal until it's too late. They don't realize that every choice they make, every action they take has consequences. And when you betray the trust of others, when you manipulate and deceive to get ahead, you're not just hurting the people around you, you're hurting yourself. You're digging a hole that gets deeper and deeper, and sooner or later you won't be able to climb out. The cost of betrayal is not just measured in the pain and suffering of the person who's been betrayed. It's measured in the loss of everything that made you who you are. The respect, the trust, the loyalty, you lose it all. And once it's gone, there's no getting it back. People don't forget betrayal. They don't forgive it. Not easily, anyway. And let's not fool ourselves into thinking that we're immune to the consequences of our actions. We may think we can outsmart the system, that we can pull the wool over everyone's eyes, but the truth has a way of coming for you. It always does. And when it does, you'll have no choice but to face it. The betrayal you thought would bring you power, success, or satisfaction will instead become the very thing that brings your downfall. I've seen it happen to the best of them. The ones who thought they were above the law. The ones who thought they could bend the rules and play the system for their own benefit. They were confident, cocky even, in their belief that they could deceive everyone around them. They thought their lies were convincing, their manipulation flawless. But what they didn't realize was that they were sowing the seeds of their own destruction. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't just hurt the person you've wronged, it destroys the person who's done the wrong. It eats away at your soul. It leaves you empty, hollow, and regretful. The guilt will weigh on you. The fear of being exposed, of facing the consequences of your actions, will keep you up at night. You'll look over your shoulder, wondering when the truth will catch up with you. And when it does, it won't be pretty. People think they can betray others without facing the music, but life has a way of catching up with you. The world has a way of righting the wrongs. You may think you've won, that you've gotten away with it. But deep down, you know the truth. You know the cost of your betrayal. You know that you're not untouchable. No one is. So let me say it again, their betrayal will cost them. It will cost them everything. The trust they once had, the respect they once commanded, the relationships they once cherished, all gone. And when it's all stripped away, what will they have left? Nothing but the cold, hard truth. And that truth will cost them far more than they ever bargained for. When you live a life based on lies, when you betray the trust of those around you, when you deceive and manipulate for your own benefit, you're not just hurting the people you've wronged, you're hurting yourself. And the price you'll pay for that betrayal is steep. It will cost you everything that matters, your integrity, your honor, your dignity, your relationships. And in the end, all you'll be left with is the hollow echo of your own choices. The consequences will follow you, and you will have no one to blame but yourself. So remember, this betrayal doesn't come without a cost. And when the time comes for you to face the consequences of your actions, you will regret every moment you spent deceiving others, every lie you told, every trust you broke. The price is too high, and no one is immune. Betrayal may seem like a temporary advantage or a way to manipulate situations, but in the long run, it always leads to a steep price. The loss of trust, respect, and integrity is something that cannot be easily regained. No matter how deeply a person tries to conceal their deceit, the truth has a way of emerging. Lies and manipulation might work for a while, but eventually, the consequences of betrayal catch up, often leading to a far worse downfall than initially anticipated. The harm caused by betrayal isn't just felt by the victim. The betrayer also loses their sense of self-worth, their relationships, and their reputation. The guilt and fear of exposure eat away at them, often leading to long-term psychological and emotional consequences. Once trust is broken, it is incredibly difficult to rebuild. Betrayal leaves lasting scars on both personal and professional relationships. People may not easily forgive or forget, and the impact can extend far beyond the initial act, affecting a wide circle of people. Betrayal comes at a high cost, a cost that extends far beyond the immediate pain or discomfort caused by the act. It's a weight that lingers, a shadow that follows you long after the deed has been done, and a truth that inevitably catches up with you. When you betray someone, you're not simply breaking a bond, you're breaking a fundamental principle of human connection, the trust that binds us together. Trust is the foundation upon which relationships are built, whether personal or professional. Without it, everything else crumbles. Betrayal shatters that trust, and when it does, it comes with repercussions that cannot be avoided or dismissed. In the beginning, when the decision to betray is made, it may seem small. The betrayals that start as minor compromises can snowball into far greater consequences. We justify our actions with excuses. It's not a big deal. They'll never know I deserve this, or everyone else is doing it. We convince ourselves that the cost of betrayal will be minimal, that the benefits will outweigh the fallout. But in reality, this is nothing more than a temporary illusion. The moment the trust between you and another is broken, everything begins to shift, and the weight of what you've done starts to sink in. The emotional toll takes its form immediately, and you begin to realize that the betrayal was not as small as you once thought. And even if you try to ignore the consequences, they'll still be there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be dealt with. The initial shock to the person being betrayed is immediate. They might feel hurt, confused, angry, or deeply disappointed. These emotions are just the beginning. The ripple effect of betrayal doesn't just affect the person betrayed, it also impacts the betrayer in ways they might not fully comprehend at first. The first sign of this is guilt. Guilt is an insidious emotion that creeps up on you often when you least expect it. In the moments when you're alone with your thoughts, when the distractions of life have faded away, that guilt will sit with you. It will weigh heavily on your conscience, reminding you of the truth you tried to hide and the lives you've disrupted with your choices. This is the beginning of the price you will pay. But guilt is only the beginning. As time goes on, the consequences of betrayal extend far beyond the personal toll. Once trust is broken, it can never be fully restored. The betrayed person may try to forgive, but true forgiveness is an elusive concept. Forgiveness is not just a word, it is an action, a decision that comes with its own set of complications. It involves letting go of the hurt, the anger, and the disappointment that betrayal causes, and for many, that is something they cannot simply do. The scars left behind by betrayal are not easily healed. The emotional wounds don't just vanish overnight. They fester, they linger, and they often resurface when least expected, triggering a cycle of pain that can extend for years. On top of that, betrayal erodes a person's sense of self. The act of betraying someone is a reflection of one's own values or the lack thereof. It shows a disregard for the well-being of others and a willingness to sacrifice trust for personal gain. In that moment, the betrayer becomes someone they may not even recognize, someone willing to compromise their own integrity. This creates an internal conflict that cannot be ignored. The more you try to deny what you've done, the more the internal struggle intensifies. You begin to see yourself through the lens of your actions, and slowly over time, the person you once were starts to fade. Who are you when you betray those you love? Who are you when you break the trust that binds people together? The answers are hard to come by, and they often leave you with a sense of emptiness, a realization that you've become someone you never thought you would be. The long-term impact of betrayal doesn't just affect the immediate relationships, it can ripple outward, affecting the broader circle of friends, family, and even coworkers. When trust is broken, it creates a divide that affects everyone around the situation. People who may have once viewed the betrayer with respect and admiration now look at them with suspicion, doubt, or disdain. They may distance themselves from the betrayer, unwilling to engage with someone who has demonstrated that they cannot be trusted. Word spreads, and soon enough, others begin to question the betrayer's credibility. A reputation built over years of hard work and respect can be destroyed in an instant. The betrayal becomes a defining characteristic, a label that the betrayer will carry for a long time, even if they try to move past it. This loss of reputation, trust, and respect cannot be overstated. For some, reputation is everything. It's the key to maintaining relationships, securing opportunities, and establishing credibility. The minute that reputation is tarnished by betrayal, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. No matter how much a person tries to prove themselves again, the stain of betrayal is difficult to remove. People remember. Even if they don't talk about it openly, they remember the breach of trust. And every time they encounter the betrayer, that memory resurfaces. It becomes a barrier, something that blocks the path to rebuilding a connection. For others, betrayal can have even more serious consequences. In a professional context, betrayal can lead to career ruin. A colleague or business partner who betrays trust can lose their job, face legal consequences, or even find themselves ostracized from their professional community. In extreme cases, betrayal can lead to lawsuits or public scandals that further damage one's career and personal life. It's not just the personal relationships that are affected, the fallout can extend to every aspect of one's life. Financial losses, career setbacks, and the collapse of professional networks are often the inevitable results of betraying someone who once trusted you. The betrayal of a friend, a family member, or a colleague carries with it a cost that is not just measured in the immediate fallout. The emotional toll is heavy. The relationships that are severed cannot always be repaired, and the scars left behind are deep. What makes betrayal even more costly is that it often involves the destruction of something that was once precious, the belief that we can trust those around us. Trust is the cornerstone of every meaningful relationship. When it is broken, it creates a sense of vulnerability and loss that can't easily be restored. It can cause someone to question their judgment, their ability to read people, and their capacity to trust in the future. In the wake of betrayal, it becomes harder to open up, to let others in, because there's always the fear that history will repeat itself. And this isn't just an emotional response, it's a defense mechanism, a way to protect oneself from further harm. But in doing so, betrayal also robs us of the ability to fully experience the depth and richness of our relationships. While the consequences of betrayal might seem personal, they also have a wider societal impact. At a broader level, betrayal undermines the fabric of trust within communities and organizations. When one person betrays the trust of others, it creates a ripple effect that spreads beyond the immediate individuals involved. People begin to doubt the intentions of others, become more guarded and more cautious in their dealings with one another. In a world where trust is essential for cooperation, progress, and growth, betrayal has the potential to slow down entire systems. It's a breakdown of social cohesion, and it creates an environment of suspicion and fear. People become more hesitant to rely on others, to collaborate, and to work towards common goals, because they are afraid of being taken advantage of or betrayed again. The cost of betrayal is not just measured in the pain it causes or the relationships it destroys. It's measured in the loss of trust, the erosion of integrity, and the long-lasting impact it has on the lives of those involved. It's measured in the damage to reputations, careers, and personal identities. The cost is steep, and it is paid by both the betrayer and the betrayed. In the end, no one escapes unscathed. The truth always surfaces, no matter how deep it is buried, no matter how many layers are piled on top to conceal it. It is a force of nature, an undeniable reality that will not be denied. In a world that is often built on lies, deception, and half-truths, the truth remains steadfast, waiting for its moment to emerge. People may think they can hide their secrets, manipulate the narrative, and control the flow of information, but the truth has a way of finding its path. And when it does, it can't be stopped. It's a tide that will rise no matter how hard you try to keep it at bay. The idea that the truth always comes out isn't a mere platitude, it's a law of nature. We have all seen it play out in the stories of our own lives and the lives of others. Whether it's in personal relationships, the workplace, or on the global stage, the truth has an uncanny ability to reveal itself when the time is right. People might think they can manipulate reality, but eventually the truth becomes too loud to ignore. When the truth surfaces, it brings clarity. It exposes what was hidden and forces the world to confront it. There is something deeply unsettling about the truth when it emerges from the shadows. It doesn't care about the consequences or the damage it causes. It doesn't care about the lives it disrupts or the reputations it ruins. The truth stands firm and unapologetic, a force that can't be ignored. Those who have tried to hide it, deceive others, or maintain a facade will find that the weight of their actions becomes unbearable. The truth has its way of breaking through all the walls, all the defenses, and when it does, it leaves no room for denial. Think about the times when you've been deceived by someone, when you trusted them only to find out that they were hiding something from you. The shock of realizing the truth can be overwhelming. It shakes your foundation, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew. But even in those moments of betrayal, there is a strange sense of relief that comes when the truth is finally revealed. It may hurt, it may sting, but at least you are no longer living in the dark. The truth is like a light that cuts through the fog, bringing clarity to a situation that once felt uncertain and confusing. And even though it might be painful to face, there is a sense of freedom that comes with no longer being held captive by lies. The truth doesn't always come easily. Sometimes it is buried so deeply that it takes years, even decades, for it to emerge. It can be hidden by layers of deception, silence, and manipulation, but eventually the cracks begin to show. The weight of the lies becomes too heavy to sustain, and the truth forces its way out. It could be a small detail that unravels the entire story, or it could be a monumental revelation that changes everything. But either way, once the truth has been set free, there's no going back. In personal relationships, the truth always has a way of coming to light. The lies that people tell themselves or others may go unnoticed for a time, but the truth has a way of exposing them when they least expect it. It's in the small inconsistencies, the slips of the tongue, the signs that something isn't right. Over time, these little moments build up, and eventually the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The person who has been hiding something might try to cover it up, deflect attention, or deny the truth, but once it's out there, there is no going back. The trust that has been broken can't be easily repaired. The relationship may never be the same, no matter how much effort is put into mending it. The truth has a way of reshaping everything, forcing people to confront the reality they've been trying to avoid. It's not just in our personal lives that the truth surfaces, it happens in the workplace too. In the world of business, politics, and public life, there are countless examples of people trying to manipulate the truth to protect their own interests. They might distort facts, cover up mistakes, or present a false narrative to keep up appearances. But sooner or later, the truth finds its way to the surface. Whether it's through leaks, investigations, or whistleblowers, the truth cannot be kept hidden forever. And when it emerges, it often has far-reaching consequences. Careers are destroyed, reputations are tarnished, and trust is shattered. The truth can topple empires and change the course of history. No amount of power, wealth, or influence can keep the truth from eventually emerging. It's a reminder that, in the end, honesty and integrity matter far more than any attempt to conceal the truth. On a larger scale, the truth always finds its way into the public eye, no matter how many people try to suppress it. Think of the scandals that have rocked societies throughout history. From political cover-ups to corporate corruption, there is no shortage of examples of powerful figures who thought they could hide the truth and maintain their positions of power. They may have controlled the media, silenced dissent, or manipulated the flow of information, but sooner or later, the truth broke free. It was revealed through investigative journalism, public outcry, or the efforts of those brave enough to speak out. And once the truth was exposed, everything changed. It may have been years in the making, but when the truth was finally revealed, it had the power to reshape the world. The consequences of the truth coming out are not always immediate. In some cases, it takes time for people to process the information and fully understand its impact. But make no mistake, the truth will be felt. It may take weeks, months, or even years for the full effects of the truth to be realized, but it will eventually catch up to everyone involved. Once the truth comes to light, there is no going back. It's like a stone thrown into a still pond. It creates ripples that expand outward, touching everyone in its path. No one can escape the truth once it has been unleashed. Even those who try to avoid it or deny it will eventually have to confront it. One of the most powerful aspects of the truth is its ability to persist. Lies may dominate the narrative for a time, but they are always temporary. The truth, on the other hand, is eternal. It may be obscured, hidden, or manipulated, but it will always return. No matter how much effort is put into controlling the narrative, the truth remains untouchable. Those who try to deceive themselves or others may succeed for a while, but eventually the truth will reveal itself. It is inevitable, and it's only a matter of time before it does. The power of the truth is that it doesn't require anyone's permission to exist. It doesn't depend on circumstances or opinions. It simply is. And while people may try to suppress it, deny it, or distort it, the truth remains constant. It is something that cannot be ignored or overlooked indefinitely. The more it is suppressed, the stronger it becomes until it cannot be contained any longer. At the end of the day, the truth is a force that is beyond our control. We can try to hide from it, deny it, or avoid it, but it will always find its way to the surface. It will come in its own time, and when it does, it will bring clarity to everything it touches. Even though it may be painful to face, the truth sets us free. It forces us to confront reality, no matter how uncomfortable or difficult that might be. And when the truth has been revealed, there is no turning back. It changes everything, reshaping the way we see the world, ourselves, and each other. The truth may be hidden for a time, but it always surfaces, and when it does, it leaves nothing in its wake but clarity and understanding. Betrayal destroys both sides, a reality that often goes unnoticed in the moment of deception. When someone chooses to betray another, they might think they are gaining an advantage, achieving a fleeting moment of personal satisfaction, or even securing a position of power. But what they don't often realize is the irreversible damage they are causing not only to the person they betrayed, but to themselves as well. The immediate consequences may seem to favor the betrayer, but over time, the long-term effects will tear both parties apart. Betrayal is a double-edged sword, and in the end, it destroys everything it touches. On the surface, it may seem like the betrayer has won. The person who has deceived or manipulated another might feel a temporary rush of power or success. They might feel that they've outsmarted someone, taken advantage of a situation, or secured something they otherwise wouldn't have been able to achieve. In the heat of the moment, when the betrayal occurs, they might not see the deeper consequences of their actions. They might think that by deceiving someone else, they are protecting themselves, gaining something they want, or making a strategic move to further their own agenda. But the truth is, betrayal isn't a one-sided action. It affects both individuals involved, regardless of the perceived initial outcome. The first victim of betrayal is always the one who has been deceived, manipulated, or lied to. They are the ones who have placed their trust in another person, believing that they are acting in good faith. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to restore. The person who has been betrayed will often feel a combination of hurt, confusion, anger, and deep disappointment. The betrayal cuts deep because it is a violation not just of an agreement or an understanding, but of the very trust that was the foundation of the relationship. Betrayal undermines the sense of security that we build with others, whether it's a close friendship, a romantic relationship, or a professional partnership. The betrayal makes the victim question their own judgment and perception of the person they trusted. How could someone they relied on, someone they believed in, turn against them so easily? The emotional turmoil that follows a betrayal is often overwhelming. The victim may experience intense feelings of betrayal, not just on the surface, but at a much deeper level. It's not just about the immediate loss. They may mourn the loss of their sense of self, the image of the world they thought was true, and the relationship they believed was genuine. The pain caused by betrayal isn't just emotional, it can be physical too. The shock of the act can lead to sleepless nights, anxiety, depression, and a loss of peace of mind. The victim is left trying to piece together the truth and understand how things could have gone so wrong. The act of betrayal creates a ripple effect that disturbs every aspect of the victim's life. The lies, the secrets, and the deceit that were once hidden in the shadows are now exposed to the light, and everything feels uncertain. But the impact of betrayal doesn't stop there. The person who has betrayed another also experiences significant damage. They may not feel the immediate pain that the victim feels, but the emotional and psychological consequences begin to take root soon after the act. The betrayer may experience guilt, shame, and regret. Initially, they might try to justify their actions, believing that the betrayal was necessary or the right thing to do at the time. But deep down, they know they have violated something sacred, the trust of another person. The feeling of guilt, which might be suppressed at first, gradually builds up, gnawing at their conscience. The betrayer begins to realize that their actions have hurt someone they once cared about or trusted themselves. The idea that betrayal only impacts the victim is a fallacy. The person who betrays another can never walk away from the act unscathed. In fact, over time, the damage to the betrayer can often be more profound than the immediate effects on the victim. While the victim experiences the initial shock, pain, and confusion, the betrayer must live with the knowledge of what they've done. Every time they face the person they've betrayed, they are reminded of the violation. They may feel a sense of guilt or shame that haunts them, making it difficult to face the person they've hurt, let alone themselves. The guilt grows over time, eating away at their sense of self-worth and integrity. They may also start to question their own moral compass, wondering what kind of person they've become. Their actions betray their own values, their own beliefs, and their own sense of decency. This internal conflict is a silent battle that can often lead to feelings of emptiness, depression, or a loss of identity. But the destruction caused by betrayal goes beyond the individual. Relationships between the betrayer and the victim are often permanently altered. The victim might try to forgive, or at least move on, but the bond that once existed is forever broken. It's a harsh reality, but betrayal creates a divide that is almost impossible to bridge. The once deep connection is now filled with suspicion, doubt, and emotional scars that can't be erased. Even if the betrayer apologizes and seeks forgiveness, the damage to the relationship is done. Trust has been shattered, and with it, the foundation of the relationship. Forgiveness may come, but it is rarely complete. The victim might forgive, but the hurt remains, and the betrayal is always in the back of their mind. There is a subtle shift in how they view the betrayer and how they relate to them. The victim might never fully trust again, not just the betrayer, but anyone else who enters their life. For the betrayer, the consequences are just as severe, if not more so. They might have damaged their relationship with the person they hurt, but they have also damaged themselves. The guilt, the shame, and the emotional weight of their actions can be overwhelming. They have to live with the knowledge that they've hurt someone who trusted them, and that knowledge never leaves them. Even if they try to move on, there is an underlying sense of betrayal that stays with them. No matter how much they try to justify their actions, the reality remains they betrayed someone, and that is something that cannot be undone. The fallout of betrayal also extends beyond the individuals directly involved. In many cases, betrayal affects the larger circle of friends, family, or co-workers. When one person betrays another, it can cause a ripple effect that impacts others. People who were once close to both parties may find themselves caught in the middle, forced to take sides or navigate a difficult situation. Trust within a community or group can be severely damaged when one person's actions cause a breach that affects everyone. Those who were once part of the relationship are now left picking up the pieces, trying to make sense of what happened and how to move forward. The betrayal creates tension and division, making it difficult for others to maintain their relationships with either party involved. In some cases, betrayal can even have larger societal implications. When powerful figures betray the trust of the people, it can lead to public scandals, political upheaval, or a breakdown in social cohesion. Trust is the foundation of any system, and when that trust is broken on a large scale, it can have far-reaching consequences. People begin to question the legitimacy of those in power, the integrity of institutions, and the reliability of the systems that govern them. Betrayal on a grand scale erodes the very fabric of society, leaving a trail of broken relationships, shattered reputations, and a collective loss of faith. What's important to recognize about betrayal is that it's not just a personal failure, it's a failure that transcends the individual. It's not just about the two people directly involved, it's about the broader impact on relationships, communities, and society. Betrayal destroys not just the trust between two people, but the trust within the systems we rely on. It leaves a scar that cannot be easily healed, and that scar marks both the victim and the perpetrator. Both sides suffer, and both sides lose something in the process. The victim loses trust, security, and perhaps even a sense of who they are in relation to others. The betrayer loses their integrity, their sense of self, and their place in the world. Both are left to grapple with the consequences of their actions, and both must live with the damage that betrayal inflicts. In the end, there are no winners. The cost of betrayal is high, and both sides pay the price. Betrayal breeds unforgiveness, a truth that is as old as human nature itself. There is something deeply corrosive about being betrayed, something that leaves an indelible mark on the heart and mind. Betrayal is not a minor breach of trust, it is a profound violation of the very foundation of relationships. When someone you love, trust, or depend on betrays you, it fractures something deep within, creating a chasm that can seem impossible to bridge. The emotional and psychological impact of betrayal often leaves the victim with feelings of anger, resentment, and hurt that linger long after the betrayal itself has occurred. And as these feelings fester, they give birth to unforgiveness, a state of mind that is not only destructive to the one who has been wronged, but also to the one who is unwilling or unable to forgive. At its core, betrayal is an act that shatters the trust between people. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether it's a friendship, family bond, romantic partnership, or professional connection. When someone betrays that trust, it feels as if the very ground beneath you has crumbled. The emotional pain that accompanies betrayal often goes beyond just hurt feelings. It is a deep sense of betrayal, one that undermines your sense of self-worth and your ability to trust others in the future. It's an attack on the very essence of the relationship. The person who has been betrayed may find themselves in a constant state of disbelief, wondering how and why someone they trusted could cause them such harm. The feelings that follow betrayal can be all-consuming: anger, humiliation, fear, sadness, and confusion. This emotional turmoil is not easily processed, and often it doesn't go away with time. When trust is broken in such a profound way, it is not something that can be easily repaired. Forgiveness in this context becomes a complicated and often elusive process. While forgiveness is often viewed as a virtue, something that one must extend to heal and move forward, betrayal makes the act of forgiving incredibly difficult. The pain and damage inflicted by betrayal are so deep that it feels unnatural, even impossible to forgive. In the aftermath of betrayal, many people struggle to come to terms with the idea of forgiveness. How can one forgive someone who has hurt them so badly? How can one forgive when the act of betrayal feels so unjust, so wrong? It is in this struggle that unforgiveness takes root. Unforgiveness is a silent, slow-growing poison that seeps into every corner of the victim's life. It begins with small, seemingly harmless thoughts: resentment, anger, and bitterness. These emotions are a natural response to betrayal, but when they are not dealt with, they begin to grow and multiply. The victim may find themselves ruminating over the events of the betrayal, replaying them in their minds over and over again. They may feel consumed by the hurt, unable to move past the wound. This constant focus on the betrayal only deepens the pain and fosters resentment. The victim may begin to see the world through a lens of bitterness, viewing everyone with suspicion and mistrust. They may even isolate themselves from others, afraid of being hurt again. Unforgiveness also has a profound impact on the victim's emotional and physical well-being. Holding on to anger and resentment can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. The emotional turmoil created by betrayal becomes a heavy burden that the victim carries with them, even if they try to hide it from the outside world. This internalized pain can manifest itself in physical ways, such as sleepless nights, headaches, or fatigue. The mental and physical toll of unforgiveness is significant, affecting every aspect of the victim's life. The longer unforgiveness is allowed to take root, the more it controls the victim's emotions, thoughts, and actions. It becomes an all-encompassing force that clouds their judgment and prevents them from finding peace. But while the victim suffers from unforgiveness, the one who has caused the betrayal also faces consequences. While it may seem that the betrayer escapes without repercussions, the truth is that the act of betrayal harms them as well. At first, they may feel a sense of relief or even satisfaction from achieving their goal, especially if they have manipulated or deceived someone for personal gain. They may believe that the betrayal was justified or that it was a necessary evil. However, as time passes, the weight of their actions catches up with them. The guilt, shame, and regret that accompany betrayal are impossible to ignore. The betrayer may begin to realize the depth of the harm they've caused, not just to the person they've wronged, but to themselves as well. The act of betraying someone creates an internal conflict that can be deeply unsettling. The betrayer may feel that they have betrayed their own values, their integrity, and their own sense of morality. In some cases, the betrayer may even try to justify their actions, rationalizing that the betrayal was necessary or that the victim deserved it. However, this justification does not erase the fact that they have hurt another human being. Over time, this internal conflict erodes the betrayer's sense of self-worth. They may feel disconnected from their true selves, questioning their own character and motivations. The guilt and shame that follow betrayal often lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness. The betrayer may try to move on with their life, but the knowledge of what they've done continues to haunt them. Unforgiveness also breeds a cycle of negativity that extends beyond the individuals directly involved. In situations of betrayal, especially in close relationships, others may become caught in the middle. Friends, family members, or co-workers who are aware of the betrayal may feel torn between taking sides. They may feel the weight of the tension that betrayal creates, and they may struggle to navigate their own feelings of anger, disappointment, and confusion. The emotional fallout from betrayal is not confined to the victim and the betrayer alone. It can ripple outward, affecting those who are closest to both parties. In some cases, the betrayal may even cause fractures in wider social circles, leading to fractured relationships and broken bonds. This cycle of betrayal and unforgiveness can persist for years if not addressed. The person who has been betrayed may carry the burden of their anger and pain with them for the rest of their life, creating a lifelong struggle that prevents them from moving forward. The betrayer, too, may be trapped in the consequences of their actions, unable to escape the guilt and shame that accompany their choices. This ongoing cycle only serves to perpetuate the damage done. Both sides remain locked in a pattern of negativity, unable to break free and heal. At some point, both the victim and the betrayer must come to a crossroads. It is here that the concept of forgiveness becomes crucial. Forgiveness is not a simple act of letting go of the hurt. It is a conscious decision to release the emotional hold that betrayal has on your life. For the victim, forgiveness is an act of liberation. It is the choice to stop carrying the burden of anger and resentment, to free themselves from the emotional weight that unforgiveness creates. Forgiveness does not mean excusing the betrayal or pretending that it never happened. It does not mean that the victim should forget the harm that was caused. Instead, forgiveness is about reclaiming power over one's own emotions and choosing not to let the betrayal define their life. For the betrayer, forgiveness is also necessary. They must confront the guilt and shame of their actions and take responsibility for the harm they have caused. They must recognize the depth of the betrayal and make amends, not just with the person they hurt, but with themselves. Forgiveness in this case is a path toward redemption. It is the opportunity to rebuild their sense of integrity and restore their own moral compass. However, forgiveness is not always easy, and it may not always be possible in every situation. Some betrayals are so profound that the victim may feel that forgiveness is out of reach. In these cases, the emotional and psychological damage can be so deep that the process of forgiveness becomes a long and difficult journey. But the longer unforgiveness is allowed to fester, the more damage it causes. It becomes an endless cycle that prevents healing and growth. Forgiveness, though challenging, is often the only path to freedom for both the victim and the betrayer. In the end, betrayal breeds unforgiveness because it strikes at the very heart of human relationships. It creates a rift that feels impossible to close, and it leaves both parties suffering in different ways. The victim feels the weight of the betrayal, carrying the hurt and pain with them, while the betrayer is haunted by their own guilt and shame. But it is only through the process of forgiveness, whether offered by the victim or sought by the betrayer, that healing can begin. Without forgiveness, both sides remain trapped in a cycle of resentment, regret, and pain. Only by choosing to forgive can both the victim and the betrayer free themselves from the shackles of betrayal and begin to rebuild their lives.